listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome to the GM Shuffle. I'm Geoff Schwartz alongside Marty Hurney. We are presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Marty, we are almost here. It is almost time for the NFL draft. It's about 11 days away from now. We'll have you covered next week with 2 episodes, Monday and Wednesday, doing a mock draft, half Monday, half Wednesday. We'll add in some news and notes along the way in those episodes. But today, Marty, we got more NFL news as usual. We're going to talk through the draft process when it comes to finding out background information about these prospects. We'll talk a little mock draft season. We'll hit some corners and linebackers here and some other news and notes along the way. Are you starting to get into draft season, Marty? It feels like this draft is not really given like the oomph of other drafts, maybe because other sports are sort of winding down right now. So we're looking to their playoffs, and college basketball just ended. But I think it's all about quarterback, right? Only one quarterback right now guaranteed in the first round. And those drafts tend to not be as exciting from the outside. Maybe obviously inside a building, you're always excited for the NFL draft.
Yeah, I was ready to answer your question. He answered it before I had a chance. I really do think that this draft isn't getting, as much public attention just because of the quarterback situation. And the one everybody knows is going to the Raiders right now. This is a really hard draft, Geoff. And this is one that I would really be preaching in the early rounds. Listen, let's take the guys with the fewest amount of questions. There's a lot of different ways you can go here. And now listen, it's the time of year too. Up until this week, everybody is just kind of trying to figure out if a guy's not going to be successful, why he wouldn't make it. So, I always said we tear these poor kids down, for 2 or 3 weeks going in. This is the week your draft board is basically set. Now you're going through position by position, and now you're building the players back up.
Yeah.
I always tell the story when we're talking about Cam Newton at the Panthers in 2011, and as you can imagine, we had some very spirited discussions there. But I was kind of always on Cam's side, and I thought you start with quarterbacks when you're at that position and go from there. And I just thought he was a difference maker. But when we got into the meetings, scouts would always be saying, "No, I don't know if he can do this, can't do that." At one point, Ron Rivera just got fed up and slammed his hand on the table and said, "Don't tell me what he can't do. Tell me what he can do." And this is the week that you basically tell your scouts, okay, we've gone through all the reasons they can't make it. Tell me what they can do and why they can be good.
Yeah, that feels like a strong strategy to take, obviously, because you spend months and months and months trying to find every flaw possible for these guys. I've said that many times to people. Like, draft season is not really about the good, it's finding the bad in the players, right? And finding the reasons why they're not going to work. We all see the film. We all see why they can work. Speaking of the draft quickly, Marty, Mendoza's not going to go to the draft as a first pick. And I think he should be there. I think this is part of the job now. Number 1 pick in the draft. You're the face of this draft. You're the face of the number 1 pick. You're the face of the Raiders. If you were drafting a quarterback, number 1 over, would you ask them to be there? Like, is that something the team would say? Like, would the Raiders say to his camp, "We'd like you to be there"? Or if he says, "I don't want to go," like, that's the end of it?
That's a good question because if it was up to me, I'd say stay home, right? But a lot of times the owner will get involved and say, "Listen, we want him up there. We want him up we're at the draft, so we get the attention." And sometimes if it's number 1 pick, the owner would go to the draft,
of course,
with the players. So that would be the one person that would probably change it if they wanted to. But other than that, the head coach, the general manager, we don't care. I mean, I kind of like the fact he wanted to stay home with his family, right? I like that. That it tells me about the kid, I think. And he didn't, it's not all about going up there and getting all the attention. Now he's going to get a ton of attention wherever he is. He's the first pick in the draft, but I like his decision. But you're right. If that would change, I think it would normally be the owner's decision.
Interesting. Yeah, I think he should be there. I get why he's not, but we've had other players that have not been there for the first pick, and life continues on. So on the draft, Marty, this is a time of drafts. We get a lot of sort of stories that break, information comes out that we have not heard. And we had one over the last couple of days. We talked about pass rushers last episode, and Rueben Bain was a big part of that discussion. A report came out that said he was involved in a fatal traffic collision in Miami in March of 2024. He was a sophomore in Miami. And one of the passengers in his vehicle that was struck by another car suffered injuries, eventually passed away. There was a charge of careless driving. It was dismissed. It appears, according to reports, that Bain was not intoxicated. Bain was not speeding. And so setting aside the report, which appears to be a lot of sort of maybe a little gotcha, and then it was reported that teams all know about this. It's not something that teams don't know about. You've had to do background checks on players. You've had to find these stories out. Walk us through the process of trying to uncover some of the things that might not be public. What are lengths do you go through to check court records, to check, other places to find these stories?
Really good question, Geoff. And the first thing that came to mind when I read this story was last week and this week, depending on the teams, but usually one of the 2 weeks, you have your meetings with the medical meetings. One night, the doctors will come over at 6:00.
Yeah.
Go till about 10, go through the whole book, tell you who should come off the board, who's an issue. Well, the security guy does the same thing, right? He comes, he reads his report, and really every team, the league does background on all the draft players. So your security guy gets it from the league, and then we would always have another company to do background research and come up with things. Well, the meetings were last week and this week. So I kind of shook my head and I said, the timing was sort of curious to me that this is when all the information is coming out, because different teams handle those meetings different ways. Some just have the general manager, the head coach, and the trainer in the medical meetings and the security guy. Others have some scouts in there and other people in there. And when you have the more people you have in there, the more chance there is of the information getting out. As far as Rueben Bain goes, listen, he's not the only one. There are situations like this that you have to research. Every team has known this for a long time. One of the questions I would ask is, how is this going to affect him? Has it affected him personally? I mean, this is a tragic event that he was involved in. It seems like in some kind of way. How's that going to affect his attitude, his character, his personality? Back in 2011, we signed an undrafted free agent named Byron Bell, and everybody knew it when he was at New Mexico. He had left for a game. He lived with his little brother. His little brother was in the house alone. The house caught on fire, and the brother died. And obviously, Byron really, really struggled with that. So those are the things that you want to try to find out, and those are the things that your area scout should already have a very good feel for, because they're at the schools, they're talking to players and coaches around them. So, but that's really what you're doing this week, Geoff. You're going through these meetings with your security people and your medical people, either last week or this week, and you're really fine-tuning. What you don't want to do is take a guy who there was something there and you didn't know about that would cause you a problem. And you really, you spend a lot of time being worrying about that and being very certain that that's not going to happen.
So two sort of famous stories in the last decade about players sort of having things pop up very close to the draft. Even closer than this, was Laremy Tunsil with the gas mask. You were not in the NFL at that time. How would you have handled that? Obviously, someone released the picture. Smoky Week now is a lot different. It's essentially legal in the NFL. It's legal in different states. It wasn't back then. How would you have handled that in the draft? If you had Tunsil, pencil in to be the 5th pick in the draft, gas mask video comes out, how would you have handled that?
Well, I can tell you, if at Carolina, we would not have taken him. We would have passed. The thing about that one,
but that's from ownership, correct?
It was organizational philosophy at the time. Yes.
Okay.
We would have.
Yes.
We would have.
Fair enough. I
On him.
get it. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
We would have passed. And the thing about that one, Jeff, is I can remember is that it came out real late. Didn't it come out like right before the draft. The draft started? I mean, it was pretty.
I think it was day of the draft, Marty, or at least the night before, maybe. Yeah.
Pretty late. So, you're scrambling to figure that out. I've been in situations where, scouts sometimes thinking they would help would call other teams, and you just don't know who to believe right now, Jeff. I mean, there's so many stories out there, and you don't know if you're talking to a scout's talking to a scout from another team, which I never did like, but asking about these situations, well, heck, if that team wants to draft a guy, they're not going to give you the true story on him. They're going to want you to pass on him, I would think. So it's really hard. You have to rely on all the work and research you've done by yourselves, because I just never wanted to. I didn't know who to believe outside. I mean, you had people that you went to and kind of talked to every year about what they were hearing, but when it comes to these type of things, you just have to do your own work, because everybody's trying to get the best player available, and you do worry about these type of things, that if you're missing something.
Yeah, I mean, this is the time of year when these things sort of pop up. And the other one was Lyle Collins, right? Who
Yes.
was it was his girlfriend, White, was murdered. That's I believe that's what it was. And ended up he had nothing to do with it whatsoever.
Right.
But it happened right before the draft. He then fell to undrafted. He was going to be a first round pick.
Yes.
Fell to undrafted. And you were in the NFL during that time.
Yes.
How was that handled?
Well, his agent basically told everybody, listen, if he doesn't go first round, and it might have been second, but if he doesn't go first round, we're not reporting. So don't draft him. Don't think you're trying to get a steal late. So everybody knew the situation with him. We were going to pass on him, but there were teams that saw it as an opportunity to get a really good player.
So, we'll you know what? I'm gonna follow up with one question, and then we're gonna talk about mock drafts and some NFL news, and we'll talk about cornerbacks and linebackers. Do next. Gears Shuffle, presented by DraftKings Network.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome back to the GM Shuffle. I want to continue a conversation, Marty, about Lyle Collins, because you mentioned his agents said that if he was drafted after a certain time, he wouldn't report. And there's a lot of times NFL teams don't care about those threats at all. Why in this situation did everyone take this seriously? Because, I mean, if he was a third round pick, was he really not going to report to the team and go back to school or go sit out a year? I mean, what recourse did he really have at that time if you took him in the third round?
Well, you're still now. So let's go back. If you take him in, we got to do this in real time, right? So his name's out there. There's enough questions about him that nobody took a first round pick on a player that was a legitimate first round pick, right, Jeff? Right. I mean, if this didn't come out, he probably goes middle, top half, middle of the first round.
Mid-tees, probably,
And it came out so late, and they were so sure that nothing was going to be wrong. If you're going to take if you don't think you can take a chance on run him in the first round, I'm not doing it in the third round, Jeff. That the third round still, you should get a good player in the third round to come in and help you. Now, listen, everybody knew that this guy would come in and start immediately, but everybody had to wait until he was cleared. So it's easy to say that now. Why wouldn't you just take him in the third round? But in real time, when you're facing the pressure of everything that's come out publicly, you're dealing with your owner, and now, you're dealing with the agent saying, well, listen, you take him in the third round, you're going to look like an idiot because we're not going to report. Do you really want to get into a game of chicken at that point? I just think that, as Mr. Richard would always say, certainly there's somebody else on that draft board that can help our football team. And I really do think that's a healthy approach to take. If you have that many questions on a guy or you don't have enough answers, skip, go to your next guy, go to your safest next pick.
That makes a lot of sense. I was just curious about that as we continue to talk about the draft. So we're getting now the end of mock draft season, where the top insiders, the guys that we turn to really trust their opinion because they've made a name for themselves, Mel Kiper, Daniel Jeremiah, Dane Brugler, Peter Schrager, I'm sure there's other people I'm forgetting, are starting to put out mock drafts. And there's one of them today that has a trade in the top 10. It has the Browns taking offensive lineman, but not the one that I think we think. The Chiefs are drafting Jeremiah Love at 9 this mock draft. It's a mock draft that's different, Marty, than all the rest of them. In the NFL front office, how seriously do you take a mock draft, I should say, from someone that we think of as a trusted person who is putting this information out?
I personally didn't pay any attention to it all because I didn't know. You never know who to believe in. Those names, guys that make those lists are talking to people right now. Sometimes they're talking to people that know. Sometimes they're talking to people that don't know. But teams are putting out what they want out. So I didn't pay a lot of attention to it, Jeff. But I will say this: we had a board up front next to the draft board that basically had 5 or 6 top mock drafts all the way through the first round. I personally never really looked at it. I just didn't think that it really gave you an idea who somebody was going to take. I basically, if you're in the league a long time and you know a lot of people, you know who to trust. I go on the phone the same as these guys do. And as you got closer to the draft, you kind of got some good information about what people were talking about. And really the only ones that you want to know are the people in front of you and really the first 4 or 5 picks in front of you. Because the way we operated in the first round was when we got 5 picks out, we would take our next 5 players and we would put them in a group and we'd put them in an order. And if there was a debate between 1 or 2 guys, we would put the top 2 next to that. And then, so if you had 5 guys and your 5 picks out, you're going to get one of those guys. And that's how we operated. So people saying where somebody was going to go before the draft, it's just so difficult to predict. But we just took the stance that we're going to be ready 5 picks ahead. And obviously, if there was a player you really liked and there was a possibility of trading up, you had gone through all those scenarios. But I think the mock drafts are fun to look at, but I don't know how much help they are when you're trying to make a decision of who to draft for your team.
So how often would you call just like a general manager buddy of yours? Like today is the week, is Monday today as we record this. Like how often are you calling a friend of yours on a Wednesday? Hey man, what are you thinking about the draft? Like how often are those calls happening?
There were about 5 or 6 people that I would talk to, Jeff, months in advance, and it's just like, people say, I would talk with John Fox or Ron Rivera. I mean, I'd talk about the draft through the whole season, through the whole year, and if there were guys that came up that you liked, I always thought it was good to mention to the head coaches early on and have that communication. But I think it's just, it for me, it wasn't a week or 2 before. Now it intensified during that period, but really it was just, a couple months of talking to guys and seeing what they heard. And again, you really have to keep it to people that you trust. And obviously they're getting their information from other people as well. So it's a process where you really can't believe anything you hear, but you have to have enough confidence in your information to help guide you to really what you think is going to happen and who do you think is going to be there when you're on the clock.
Last piece of draft talk, because you brought this up earlier and you talk about information gathering and you talked about the doctors part of this, right? So everyone has team doctors, right? They have regular jobs, right? So then you mentioned they come to you at night after their job and they go over every prospect. Can you talk about sort of that process for you guys? Because, if you like a guy a lot and the doctor comes and says, I don't like his knee, how does that shift your draft board?
Well, so the guys that we thought had 2 serious medicals to draft, we would make their tag red. So we would put them on the board and keep them where we had them graded if they were healthy. But with that red label, we would not take him because of medical reasons. And basically our doctors had a scale 1 through 5 where 3 was kind of, wear and tear, but everybody's got something playing this game. 4 was a real danger mark, and that's usually the 4s. The 5s definitely had reds, but the 4s were like, ooh, boy, I don't know. We might have to pass on him. So again, it's a subjective process. There are no certain answers. I mean, one team and the trainers do have a list. They have a list of 4 or 5 teams of the medical grades. And sometimes the grades are very different from one team to the next. So, but you have to rely on your doctors. And that's why those 30 visits are so important, because anybody that you have question marks on them, you need to bring them in, take them over to your doctor's office, get the test done, because really at the combine, they are in a room with all the other teams and they split the teams up to see everybody. And they really don't have a long time to really examine the players. So if there's a guy you think has some issues, you bring him in. Those guys you feel much better about when the doctors talk about them, because they've seen them, they've done the tests. But again, I mean, it's just, you really have to go by your experience and just, being cautious and staying away from the guys who you think are 50-50 or better to have a reason to not maximize their potential.
Did you ever push back on a doctor, or you just took their word for it? Like, I guess, I mean, you're not a medical expert, but like, if someone was like, I don't, this person had this ailment and this and that, would you be like, tell me more? I don't believe you. Obviously, you're not going to say I don't believe you, but you put full faith in what the doctor's telling you, right?
Yeah, but not with a little bit of pushing. If there's a guy you really like, you're asking a lot of questions. You could be on that guy for 25 minutes. It's the old thing, like, keep asking questions, try to wear him down until you get the answer you want. But you really don't want to get there in that way, because if they're right, you're taking the wrong guy, you're screwed. So I think, I tell you what helped me, Geoff, is we had consistent doctors, Pat Connor and Rob Heyer. We had those guys for a long time, so we got to know them. And it's just like when you get to know a scout, how he grades players, right? One scout might be extremely hard and he's grading everybody low, but you know that on him. Well, after you've had 5 or 6 meetings with the doctors, you kind of know how what they're going to think. And we had the best trainer in the league in Ryan Vermillion, who could translate all that stuff for me and would really give you an honest answer. Hey, Marty, you really want to stay away from this guy, or you know what, he's worth it, but you might not want to go in the first few rounds with him. So it's really about finding people you trust, communication. We had a great group down in Carolina, and Ryan Vermillion really got us through the medical part of it.
Do you remember a player that you drafted despite medical concerns that ended up not having those issues in the NFL?
I do. I can't think of a name, but we did it several times. We did it several times. And yeah, a lot of it was, now we never took a guy who we had redded out. Okay. So the guys we took were guys that we thought could stay healthy, but
I probably had a 3 grade. I call it 3 or 4. I was probably, it wasn't red, but I was close. Back injury in college, bigger offense. I was probably a risk. I was a 7th round pick though, so that risk is mitigated by the draft pick.
Yeah, that could have been a little bit of the reason, but when it came to you, if somebody brought that up, I'm sitting there saying, listen, this guy's a tough sucker. He ain't missing nothing. He's got to be laid out to not play on the field. you would recite your character and your history and your production history, and I would be fighting hard.
Because I didn't miss any games in college. It was the back injury. I know that that's one thing too. Like we talk about this, but there's injury prone and there's sort of just injured. Everyone's sort of injured, but how much time do you actually miss because of the injury is the question. So, all right, we're going to touch a little bit of NFL news, and then we're going to get into the linebackers and defensive backs. A lot of great players to talk about here. We'll do that next, as usual, presented by DraftKings Network.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
We're back here on the GM Shuffle. Geoff Schwartz and Marty Hurney. Some NFL news and notes now. The Eagles made a trade for Wicks, the wide receiver out of Green Bay. This very much, Marty, feels like two things the Eagles are doing. One is they might be preparing for a potential A.J. Brown trade, which feels very likely to New England after June 1st. But this is where relationships matter in the NFL. Sean Mannion, who's the new OC for the Eagles, came from Green Bay. I'd imagine he told Ty Roseman, hey, man, this Wicks kid is going to be good. I need him in my offense. Please go get him for me. And this is absolutely what happened here with the trade for, again, like a player that's, he's fine, but I'd imagine that Sean Mannion told the Eagles brass, like, this guy in my offense, 30 catches last year, 332 yards. I mean, not a ton of production, but I imagine he envisions more production for him when he gets to Philadelphia.
This is one of the many reasons Howie Roseman's one of the best general managers in this league. He listens, and then he's not afraid to move and be aggressive. And, he gave a fifth this year and a sixth next year for a player that is going to play a critical part as a rotational receiver, I would think, at the very least, Geoff, in their offense. And where are you going to get a guy like that in the fifth and sixth round? So I thought it was a really good move by the Eagles. You're right, that connection between coach and player. But then it's very important to have a general manager that listens to his coaches and then, goes and investigates the players. This is a typical Howie Roseman move that is, I think, a really good move, really smart move, and it really does typify why he's one of the best, if not the best, general manager in the league.
There was a report about Travis Hunter that said that the Jacksonville Jaguars are moving him to full-time corner and part-time wide receiver, and Travis Hunter clapped back and said that's not true, but I mean, I don't know what he would know yet. He's not been in the building because he's rehabbing an injury. Marty, were we doing the show last draft? No, we started doing the show together at the regular season.
Right.
So I watched a lot of Travis Hunter. I think we all did. Incredible player.
Yep.
My whole point of Travis Hunter was you have to pick one or the other. I probably would pick wide receiver because of the importance of that position in the NFL. But you can't do this halfway thing. It doesn't work in the NFL for many reasons. One is just the playbook. I mean, consuming two playbooks is difficult, and then it limits what you do on offense. It limits if you have half a playbook on defense, everyone knows that when you're in the game, they're running cover two or they're running, a man, like, what you're doing. A wide receiver, your route tree is probably a little limited. You can just figure out what you're going to do. So I love that Jacksonville is picking a position for him. I probably would have chosen wide receiver. Cornerback's fine. He's an excellent cornerback. But Marty, I do feel much better that the report is they're finding one position for him and just choose one. Just choose one. I like this. What do you think about it?
Well, I like it if it is choosing one, Geoff, but you said they're going to switch him a corner and then play a little bit of wide receiver.
I think it's one of those things that, like, you just say it for now, but I do think he's going to be a full-time corner. Maybe you have a couple gadget plays for him. I mean, that's fine in my opinion. You throw a few gadget plays for him. Maybe in situations you put him in the game, but it sounds like he's going to play more full-time corner than anything else.
I agree. And you've been saying this for all season, is that they should pick one spot. And I totally agree with you. And I think I probably do agree with you. I'd put him at receiver first, but that's okay. Corner is good. I think that it sounds like they're going to have to talk to the player, because I think he was very excited about playing both. But listen, 4 or 5 years down the road, it's fine to bring him over and put him in a partial role, maybe at receiver, do a couple packages for him. But right now, he's got to get on the field and learn one position and maximize his skill set to that position. And I totally agree with you. And I do think it's the right move. I don't even like mentioning wide receiver right now. I'd say you're a full-time corner. Let's see how it goes for the next couple of years. And if things start working, we can throw you over on offense and work a couple packages for you.
I also think with this announcement, it is worth mentioning that Jacksonville's trade up for Travis Hunter was a misuse of management and funds. They traded a first-round pick for him, right, to move up in the draft, Marty. They claimed it was because they basically were drafting 2 players, right? They were drafting 2 guys. So I think in hindsight, that trade is just not, it was not a good trade. I mean, he might turn out to be a Hall of Fame player, maybe eat my words 11 years from now, but it does feel like that trade was just a bad trade, right?
Well, now the trade's gone. So what you have to do, and it's that's the problem with sometimes, players have to live with that too. They have to live with where they're taken, and then they also have to live with the value that is given to acquire them. And I think in this case, the Jaguars thought, oh man, we got this tremendous once in a decade athlete. We're going to play him in both spots. It was a mistake to trade back up, but if he comes and makes multiple Pro Bowls as a corner, nobody's going to care what they traded, right?
Well,
right now,
yes.
Their main issue is, how do we make this guy a difference maker player at one spot? You don't have to play 2 spots. If he's a difference maker at one spot, everybody's going to be fine with it, especially if they're winning. But that's what they have to focus on, and it sounds like they have to get the player on board with that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the owner, the team has leverage. What are you going to do? Not show up? Of course you're going to play, right? I mean, you have to tell him, and I know he's done this his whole career. We did it at Colorado, won a Heisman, obviously. He did it last season, but it does make sense. You have to tell him, look, here's the data on this, right? You take too many hits playing both sides of the ball. You can't learn the playbooks on both sides of the ball at the level that you need to. So I think that that's how you have to do it, Marty. You have to pull him aside and make that happen. If you like what you're hearing, the GM Shuffle is doing more VSiN Pro, betting splits, power, and sharp. That's all. We're done on your first month. Go to vsin.com/room. Check out all the subscription options. Let's get into talk of NFL linebackers in the draft a couple days away from now. Number one, we talked a little bit about him last week, Marty, in the pass rush segment, is Arvell Reese. He's going 2 or 3, most likely, maybe 4 at the latest, depending on what Arizona does at 3. We talked about him as on the ball, right? An on the ball pass rusher.
Right.
What about him as just an off the ball linebacker? What do you see from him?
He's got the athletic ability, Geoff. I don't know about his can't diagnose how quick it is. I think that there are some questions maybe about his instincts off the ball. I think that his value is, if you're taking him, and, obviously you can move him around. People talk about Micah Parsons, and any linebacker can rush and move around. Everybody wants to say Micah Parsons. Well, he's 20 pounds lighter than Micah Parsons. So that's a big difference. I think he
also doesn't move like him, Marty.
No, he does not. No, he does not. And I just think off the ball, I don't know whether he sees things as quickly as you'd like him to. I think his value is on the line as a pass rusher.
His teammate, Sonny Styles, 6'5", 244, just an incredible specimen of a linebacker. Still 21 years old, 4.46 of the combine, a vertical jump of 43.5, a broad of 11.2. I mean, just an incredible specimen of an athlete, Marty. A clear off the ball linebacker, comp is Fred Warner. I liked it. Off the ball linebackers making a comeback in the NFL, still supremely important.
Yep.
I mean, he's not going out of the top 5, right? Or 6. I just can't imagine it. He's such a good football player.
Yeah, I can't see him if he drops to 5. I can't see him getting past the Giants, but I could be wrong. I mean, listen, I'm old school, so I always thought a middle linebacker is your quarterback on defense to line everybody up. And then it's evolved where those guys have to be able to run, cover sideline to sideline, and cover backs and tight ends. And Sonny Styles can do all of that. I think he's a very smart player. I have talked to some people that say they have some minor questions about his instincts. I did not see that when I watched him. I think this is a really good football player who can come downhill. He really is a better blitzer than people give him credit for, and he can go sideline to sideline, and I think he's your green dot guy that can get everybody lined up and call the defense. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sonny Styles went as high as 2, and I would be surprised, I think, if he got out of the top 5.
So Reese is more of an edge combo pass rusher. Styles a true linebacker. The second linebacker taken is sort of a combination probably between C.J. Allen of Georgia, Anthony Hill Jr. of Texas, Jacob Rodriguez of Texas Tech. I watched a ton of Texas Tech because Oregon played them, so I watched every game, the last 6 games they played, plus the Oregon game. He is 6'1", 230. He physically tested fine at the combine. An absolute tackling machine, dude. Why is he not looked at as sort of the clear-cut second linebacker, off-the-ball linebacker in this draft? I think he's more productive than Allen or Hill, and that matters to me when I watch his film. So am I missing something here, why he's not sort of the clear-cut second linebacker off the board?
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned those guys, and it's going to depend on fit and who likes who, but I think I basically got him as the second guy behind Styles. And one thing I like, and we talked before we came on, he started as a quarterback at UVA, Geoff, and he's a really smart kid. And, he also kind of played a wide receiver, running back, tight end. So that helps him as far as knowing the offense and how they think and what they're going to do. He started 31 of 44 games. This guy's a really good football player, and he sees it, and he's got a quick trigger. He sees it and go. He does have short arms, but I think he's got really good productivity and instincts, and I'm with you. I like him.
Yeah. So you mentioned, Hill and C.J. Allen. What is sort of the difference? I mean, Hill's more athletic, right? More athletic player.
Yeah.
Allen is a Georgia kid. How important is it that Allen comes from a place that just puts good pros on defense at the NFL?
Really important, and he's a third-year junior, and now the only thing with him is he didn't test, and I don't think he's going to run great, but he is the athletic ability really doesn't wow you, I don't think, Geoff, but he's very solid and reliable.
Yeah.
and played 3 years at Georgia, and I do think he's a 3-down linebacker. You don't have to pull him off the field.
Let's talk more linebackers and corners next. GM Shuffle.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
We're back on the GM Shuffle. Let's touch on some linebackers, Marty. Some more. We got 2 more to talk about. Then we'll hit the safety position, the corner position. We'll try to make this some quick work here. You want to talk about Kyle Lewis, the linebacker out of Pittsburgh?
Yeah, this guy who's really helped himself in the offseason. He had a great Senior Bowl week, Geoff, and proved he can cover backs and has the ability to really have sticky coverage on backs and tight ends and turn and run. He can blitz. He's a little undersized at 6 foot 222. Ran a 4.57. This is one of the few guys I think plays faster than he timed. And I like his play speed. I think he went from a third day guy to maybe a second day guy. I think he's kind of in the third round there, but he really is that athletic type linebacker that can help you in nickel and third down situations. And you have to be able to live with his size at 6 foot 222, but he's really more of a modern day type linebacker who plays the run okay, but he's more of a cover backer.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm chuckling a little bit here because not the fault of Kyle Lewis, not the fault of NFL.com, but his height is listed at 5 feet 12 inches. So that would be 6 feet. So I was texting Len Zerline, who does all the reports. He does like 500 of them. He's such a good resource. NFL.com, give him a shout out. Send him the 5'12". Might want to put that 6 feet on the old Kyle Lewis profile there. But I've seen a lot of things. I've not seen a prospect listed at 5 feet 12 inches before. I was moving on to one more. Bryce Betcher out of Oregon, 6'1", not 5 feet 13 inches, 230 pounds here. Obviously, I've watched every snap of his for years and years now at Oregon. Former baseball player, was drafted to play baseball, chose to play football instead, and he improved a lot last season. I always sort of questioned his instincts as a linebacker. I thought a lot of times he was not able to diagnose run plays quickly enough, especially zone run plays. He'd get kind of caught in the wash. I still think he's got to work on sort of his physicality at the point of contact. But I think the improvement you saw in basically his first year as a full-time linebacker, right? He would go from football practice to the baseball field like 2 years ago in spring ball. Like that's what he was doing. So, being full-time, I think he'll keep improving. He feels like a early day three guy and a special teams player.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I see him, Geoff. The 4.73, I mean, all the things that you said, and then he's not the fastest guy, but he's a really good football player, and he's a good athlete. So I think he's your typical day three type linebacker.
Let's get to the safety and cornerback position here. Maybe the best player in all the draft is Caleb Downs out of Ohio State. Marty. Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, is it Katie McDonald, the D tackle? I mean, you got 4 potential first round picks on that team. That doesn't include any of the other players on that team that are young. I did a mock draft, Marty. This is the hard part about mock drafts. I got to pick 18. Minnesota needs a safety. They need a replacement for Harrison Smith. And I looked up and I was like, Caleb Downs is still available at 18 in my mock draft. I made a mistake. I've made a mistake. I don't know why he's here at 18. Yeah, I know. Look, you hate it. I know. I don't know. I looked, I was like, wow, it's mostly like kind of Rueben Bain fell to 10 in my mock draft. I had the Bengals taking him at 10, but Downs feels like the type of player, Marty, that sort of position, position strength for safety. Like no one really drafts safeties early, but he's such a good football player. It doesn't matter, right? You just take him anyways.
Yeah. I mean, I think he might be let's take Mendoza out of this, right? To me, after Mendoza, the 2 best players in the draft are Jeremiah Love and Caleb Downs. And, you look at Geoff, I did a little history on safeties in the first round, because you're right. That would be my issue with him, right? In the last 59 years, there's been 16 safeties in the top 10. 11 of those 16 have made at least 1 Pro Bowl. Okay, so they were worth the pick. Obviously, honestly, every time I do these lists, one of the 5 guys that didn't make it was Stanley Richard, who we drafted 9th overall in San Diego. But if you have, especially with the way this game's changed, if you have a guy who can make a difference, both coming downhill in the run and has the versatility to cover like Caleb Downs does. I just think that he's such a great kid. You talk to guys who have talked to him and done research on his background. You talk about a safe pick high. This guy and Jeremiah Love, to me, are the 2 safest guys in the draft. So I would not be shocked if the New York Jets took him at 2. I don't see any way that he gets out of the top 5. He's just too good a football player. He's a football junkie. He's just reliable in everything he does. He's smart. He's got the athletic ability. And, if you look at the list of those 16 safeties and the 11 that made the Pro Bowls, I mean, there's some really good players that were difference makers. So I just think that this kid is really, if he gets past the top 3, I'm going to be scratching my head, because he's to me, him and Jeremiah Love after Mendoza are the 2 best players in this draft.
Dylan Thieneman, the safety out of Oregon, will probably be the second safety off the board here, unless you think McNeil Warren from Toledo will go ahead of him. Thieneman's good, man. Thieneman,
Yeah.
he fits the run very, very well. He actually ran much faster at the combine than I think people expected him to run as well. Now he doesn't. It's hard because Oregon didn't use him like that. He was more of a down safety. He also played that middle linebacker, that higher middle linebacker, that three safety cover two the Oregon ran, but he didn't really show that speed very often in coverage. Downhill he did. What do you make of Thieneman? I think he has the potential to play a little different in the NFL, knowing he has athleticism.
First thing I look at safeties and linebackers is how much they're around the ball. And this guy is always around the ball, Geoff. I think he's got great instincts, and I think he's a very solid tackler. He can cover in man. He doesn't play at the 4.37, but he plays fast enough. It's just, you go back to Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs didn't run a 40 either at his pro day or the combine. Nobody cared because they saw it on tape. Thieneman's the same way. I don't really think, obviously that time will help his draft position, but you can tell on tape. I mean, he plays fast enough and he's very instinctive. I really like the guy. I think he's a very solid player and a very solid first round pick.
Let's get to the cornerback position. It feels like, in the betting on the DraftKings will tell you this, that Mansour Delane will be the first cornerback taken out of LSU, also listed at 5 feet 12 inches on NFL.com. I did get an answer back. I guess they so this is again, they reformatted which they did, the website, and it led to everyone who's listed at 6 feet to be 5 feet 12 inches. So 187 out of LSU, does feel like the first guy take. I could see him going as high as 9 or maybe 8 to the Saints, 9 to Kansas City. What do you think about Mansour?
Yeah, Geoff, I would be surprised now if more corners and offensive linemen went in the top 15 than maybe we think. Him and McCoy are definitely first round guys and potential immediate impact guys. He started 29, 33 games at Virginia Tech before coming to LSU and started every game last year. Really good instinct. Again, another guy finds the ball. He's got really good ball skills. He's not the best tackler in space, but I don't care about that. Neither was Deion Sanders. I mean, if you can cover and make plays on the ball like he can, he's another guy who I think is a fairly safe pick, and I don't see him getting out of the top 10 at all.
Yeah, it's just thinking about this draft. There's like so many. It feels like, man, it is going to be like interesting because I feel like he's a top 10 guy, and this guy. I feel like there's enough guys that are quote top 10 guys that I'm kind of curious how this all breaks down. One guy I want to talk to you about is McCoy out of Tennessee. He did not play in 2025. He was hurt. He played really well in 2024. Man cover corner. Showed some really good skills and traits. How do you evaluate a player that did not play last season?
Well, the one difference with him, Geoff, is that he did it in January, right, of 2025. So he actually started getting on the practice field late and working out a little bit, was my understanding. So that would make a little bit of difference. But again, high in the first round, if he's coming off that ACL, I mean, can he still run? Can he still play like he did before the injury? I think guys have had enough time to go down and see him to feel good about him. He doesn't turn 21 till August, Geoff. So he's just got excellent cover skills. He's got great ball skills. He can run. Just how comfortable you feel. That's where the doctor's meeting comes in, talking to your doctors. I always recite, Ryan Vermillion always said, if you tear one ACL, you have a 25% greater chance of tearing the other one, but you just don't have to worry about that. If everybody is happy with his physical situation right now coming off the ACL, it will be a hard choice between these two corners, but I think they both are top 10 talents.
We have a minute left here. Another corner, Marty, you want to highlight that you're looking forward to seeing where he's drafted.
Yeah, I like Brandon Cisse as the late first rounder, maybe top second latest, but late first rounder. He's a true junior. He's another one, doesn't turn 21 until July, but Geoff, he has all the intangibles. He's smart. He makes plays on the ball. He's sticky man coverage. I think he's got some quick twitch. I like this kid as a late first rounder. And if he got out of the first, I'd really be aggressive in the second.
I think cornerback right now in the first round was set at like 3.5. That feels light. I'm going to make sure I have the right number here. It does feel like, again, these are important positions, that are teams.
I mean, we haven't even mentioned guys like Chris Johnson, D'Angelo Ponce. There could be
it's 4.5 now. It's over 4.5 at plus 330.
Yeah,
interesting. All right, mock draft next week, next Monday and Wednesday, and then it's draft on Thursday. Talk to you guys next week, guys. Take care, everybody.